You're nervous. It's okay to be nervous.
I'm not nervous.
It's been a while since you've been on camera. I'm here with my beautiful wife.
Carly.
What's your last name?
Drechse.
Let's go. As of last summer. So if you guys don't know me, I play basketball overseas. I'm going into my 5th year. I played in 4 different countries, and my beautiful wife has been along for the ride the whole time. She supported me through every country. I feel like a lot of times I haven't shown or let her really explain her side of the story and how everything's been for her. And so today, this is gonna be sort of like a podcast style video, just letting her share her experiences overseas. Let's get straight into it. I mean, people clicked on this because of the title. Did I force you to follow me, to come with me overseas?
No.
No pressure at all?
No pressure, no. I made the decision myself.
Makes it sound like you're being held hostage.
I made the decision myself. I swear.
Let's learn a little bit more about you, just to start.
I'm from Gilbert, Arizona, born and raised in Gilbert. Me and Trey met in college at GCU in Phoenix. And then after that, he brought me to Seattle for the first time, and I kind of fell in love with Washington. So now I would say I live in Washington. I've traveled overseas with Trey for the last 4 years. The first year, Trey was in Serbia. I was still in college, so I did not go overseas with him. And then second year in Serbia, I went with him. Then we went to Poland, Germany, and now here.
Before the first time you came to visit me, had you ever been outside of the United States, not counting Canada or Mexico?
I had only gone to London, and that was when I was like 10 years old, and that was like a family vacation.
Okay, so it was a lot of newness for you. What was the biggest thing to adjust to, let's say, when you first lived overseas with me in Serbia?
Before we moved, I wasn't nervous at all. I was just like, oh, we're just gonna go and move to Serbia. And even though I've never heard of this place before, whatever, we're just gonna move. I wasn't very nervous. And then the day that I left, I had a full panic attack, and I was like, oh my God, I'm moving. Not only am I moving 6,000 miles away from home, I'm also moving in with Trey. We had never lived together before. This is my first real time in Europe. So yeah, it was a really big shift from being in college and living with roommates, and then going to Serbia and living with just Trey. And Trey was practicing 2 times a day, so I was kind of just alone. And I think that was the first time I had felt anxiety. It was hard to get out of the house and be brave.
So what was the hardest parts that you didn't expect? For example, in your first couple months, were you oh, whoa, I didn't think this would be a difficult aspect of living this far from home?
I don't know. I think just being alone for a long time. And I think after spending months and months alone, isolated in a country that doesn't speak your own language and no friends, I think it starts to become really hard to get motivated. Even though I wanted to do all these things and go out and explore and make a life for myself and XYZ, it was really, really scary and really hard. So I didn't expect it to be that hard, I guess. I expected it just to be if I were to move to a new city in Arizona. But in a different country, there's so many different aspects that play into it, language and just having to get comfortable with being uncomfortable and insecure.
For me, when I go overseas and I'm living here, I have built-in friends basically with my teammates. They're my teammates, they're gonna be my boys at practice, and then a lot of times I hang out with them outside of practice. But for you, how has it been trying to navigate creating relationships, not getting too involved in the relationships, because you're only gonna see these people for 9 to 10 months. It's a very strange environment to make friends, because a lot of people are oh, just go make friends. But it's explain that kind of environment of how difficult it is to make friends.
Making friends in adulthood is just already difficult in itself. Even at home, it's hard to make friends as a grown adult. I feel like I've had one good friend from each year. Barna and Eva, they came to our wedding. They were from Serbia, and I remember spending a lot of time with them, playing Uno and stuff at night. And then Poland, that was a crapshoot.
Pure isolation.
I didn't have any friends, and I was miserable. It was the worst year.
That year, none of my teammates really had significant others or...
Yeah. It's hard because it all determines on your teammates. If your teammates don't have wives or girlfriends or anything, I have to find it on my own, and that is not
brutal.
easy.
It's very tough.
That's not easy at all, especially in those in previous countries, there's not a lot of expats and like travelers.
Yeah, and when we played in the small
Yeah, and like
town
the
in
tiny
Poland.
little towns, like there's nobody who's American. Here, it's like I can make a friend anywhere. At a coffee shop, I can make it at my ceramic studio, at my workout studio. Like there's so many international people, and most people speak English, and so like if I wanted to find friends, I could absolutely find friends. It's still hard, but and then in Germany, we had another pair of good friends, Tanner and Sasha, who also came to our wedding. It's just luck of the draw. Every once in a while we get lucky, and then sometimes it's Poland and you have no friends.
For sure. We've already kind of covered the countries we've lived and played in: Serbia, Poland, Germany, now Portugal. They're always different, you know, it's always a way different experience each time. But if you could give one culture shock that you've had across all 4 countries, and we'll say Europe in general, what do you think that would be?
The inconvenience of everything. We were just talking about this morning. America is just very convenient. Everything is convenient, from parking lots to drive-throughs. Yeah, I don't know. Like driving in general is just more convenient. Like in Portugal specifically, the only drive-through ever around is McDonald's.
We sound so American.
I know, it is American, but it's true. Like when my friends came and visited, they're like, "Oh, can we just go get a quick coffee?" I'm like, getting a quick coffee like isn't a thing. Like you have to drive downtown, you have to find a parking spot, which is miserable. If you're not finding a parking spot, you're parking in a garage, and then you have to go find the garage, walk to the coffee shop, then get like
It's a whole
it's
process.
a whole thing, which it's a love-hate relationship. Like it's cool and it's relaxing and it's very slow paced, but it's also annoying sometimes.
I think American culture is just all based on convenience and less about enjoying the moment. And I agree that Europe, that's one of the biggest things I've had to adjust to as well. So what does a typical day, see the little plug right there, a typical day look like for you?
I'll do like my ideal.
Okay. If you're on top of your stuff.
Wake up
Yep.
around like 8:30. Trey will bring me my coffee in bed. He gets ready for practice. I get ready to get out of the house. I drive him to practice around 9:30, 9:45. And then after dropping him off at practice, I go to the ceramic studio. I do ceramics. And then I'll leave the studio around 1 and go and pick him up. And then we either get lunch or get stuff to make lunch at home. And then we take the dogs out. Monsanto, sometimes there's a workout thrown in there. Mondays and Fridays I work out at Amplify, which I love. It's a great studio. Yeah, if we're lucky, now we get to go to the beach. We went to the beach yesterday and that was super fun.
That sounds like a beautiful day, a good
And I'm not gonna
life.
lie, every day there's a nap in there somewhere.
Of course, we're proud nappers. We're not
Yeah.
ashamed of our naps.
Whoever thinks that naps are not good are crazy.
I hear every time we go to a family function, everybody's asking you, what do you do? What do you do? What are you doing? How annoying is it that people always ask you what you do? And how do you combat that constant question and still find like peace and purpose and fulfillment being over here? I mean, if you find it. I mean, I'm not gonna...
That question definitely is like hits me in the heart sometimes because I don't know what I'm doing or what I do. It changes every year, but in the past like year and a half, I would say I've found a lot of purpose in like finding my own way and like finding a career in the midst of this relationship, aka moving back and forth. Like last year, I spent 3 months at home working, and then I spent 3 months in Germany, and then I came back home and spent the rest of the time at home just working. I was barista for a while, and now I'm like officially like I would like when people ask like, oh, what do you do? Like, what do you do for work? I say I'm a Pilates instructor, which I am, but not over here because it's difficult to get a job over here because visa reasons. But back home, yes, I work at a studio and I teach Pilates. I'm an instructor, very into fitness. So like I always just say like I'm a fitness instructor. And yeah, as of recently, I would say I'm a ceramicist as well. Once I start learning how to make money on that, I can say I'm yeah, I can say I'm a ceramicist. But how I find fulfillment is just doing things that I like and navigating and adapting to moving back and forth. And like Trey was saying, like he doesn't force me to be here, so like I can go home and kind of do whatever, and that doesn't really, I wouldn't say it doesn't affect our relationship, but like we're so grown past long distance affecting our relationship that like we can confidently be away from each other without it hurting as bad. So yeah, I just like to go home and work. I find a lot of fulfillment in working. I love working. So
Yeah, it always sort of bothers me a little bit when people ask you that question because it makes it feel like they think you're just following me and just hanging out here. And I know you and I know how much of a hustler you are. And I know that's not how you think about anything. Like you're always trying to find new ways to not even make money, but just build your skills and stuff like that. And that's one of the coolest parts I think about you.
And don't get us wrong either. Like, I'm very, very, very privileged that I don't have to work. You know, like I would never take that for granted.
What do you think about the whole building a family thing overseas? Is it scary? Just give us your feelings on the idea of building a family overseas.
At first, like if you don't know anything about it, it's like how could you even do that? But it's actually really easy. It's really easy to just give birth in a different country, as long as there's good health care and you know you're about to have a kid, like choosing your contracts based on that. Like at first I was like, there's no way in hell that I'm ever giving birth outside of America, but giving birth outside of America is probably a lot better financially. So yeah, I have no issues with that. I think having like a baby and stuff overseas is fine. What starts to scare me is having like older kids, just because, I don't know, as a kid, like I don't want them moving around a lot. I want them to have like stable relationships with friends and know what their home is, like a home base, and like have that home and like have little friends in their neighborhood and like riding their bike to school and like having the same school every year. So that's really important to me. But because Trey and I are so young, like we have kind of a lot of years before that happens. So I feel like I'm not really worried about it. Like kids or like babies and toddlers, I'm cool with having over here. But once they get a little bit older, I think we're gonna have to shift our mind a little bit and see where we're at.
I'm gonna be honest, I was pretty skeptical about it until Germany, when I had so many teammates and saw so many examples of people building their families overseas. I mean, from Paige and Tilly, Lex and Indy, Jordan and Miles and Amelia. Like, it's just like there were so many examples of women, you know, managing, having kids and building families. I think that was a great experience, both for us. Like we were able to learn so much and see that it was possible. Yeah,
it's so possible. Is it hard? Like 100%, but it's definitely manageable. And we've already had some conversations with your parents, with my in-laws, about help. Like if we really need help, they can come overseas and help us for a month. Or
privileged for that too. Blessed
that they would even do that too. But I mean, having your grandparents nearby would be so much fun. So
let's get into some quick hitters. They're not necessarily gonna have yes or no answers, but I want you to try and give the shortest answers possible to where it leaves a little bit to the imagination. Favorite thing about Serbia?
The people.
Favorite thing about Poland?
Traveling to the bigger cities.
Favorite thing about Germany?
Christmas markets.
Ooh. Favorite thing about Portugal?
The views.
The views?
Yeah, like the beach.
Which country had the worst drivers?
Portugal.
Is it just because recent memory?
I've driven the most in Portugal, and y'all are crazy. I've gotten in a couple accidents.
Scariest story since being overseas?
Getting lost, and I'm not going to say the other one, but yeah, getting lost.
We've actually had some pretty scary ones.
Yeah, there's been some scary ones.
Especially Serbia, that, remember?
Yeah, we didn't need to talk about it.
Okay, wow. Okay, dream country to live in?
I would say France or Italy.
What's the first thing you're going to do when you get home?
Eat Chick-fil-A.
I mean, that's perfect. My next question, what's the first thing you're going to eat when you get home? But,
Chick-fil-A.
We don't have to get too into this, but how does living overseas and having to move back and forth and just this constant changing dynamic, how does this affect our relationship?
We have been doing long distance from the beginning. We almost didn't start dating because we knew that he was leaving. So it was kind of like already known that this was kind of going to be how things worked. And the first time we did long distance, it was very hard. And then the second time we did it, it was a little less hard. And then the third time we did it, it was a little less hard, and so on and so forth. I feel like now we can be away from each other for, I feel like 2 months is good, and then once it starts getting into the third month, it's like, okay, we need to be back together. But 2 months apart, we are just so like passionate about our own things that when we're not focusing on our own passions, like that starts to affect our relationship more than being apart. Does that make sense?
Totally. And I think also just the fact that we both have to make sacrifice to live this lifestyle in terms of like, I've got to really focus and lock in on basketball, especially in the summer. I got to really focus on my workouts in the same way. You need to go home and and work a normal job and get that sense of community in order to be a bit isolated over here for a while.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know, some people are like, I could never be away from my husband for 2 weeks, but I'm like,
I could be away from him for 3 months and I'm good.
Not that I like love it and it's like the best thing ever, but it's definitely like manageable.
Yeah, and we have some strategies too, like never hang up a FaceTime.
We have like very strict routine, not strict, but like we have routines.
Expectations.
Yeah, expectations of like our call schedule and...
Especially because the time difference is a 9-hour.
Yeah, it's the time difference that's the hardest.
When we've moved to a new country, what's the first thing that you do when you go to the new country?
Walk my near surroundings, especially because we've always really had a dog with us, like from Benji being with us from the very beginning. That's the first thing I do is like Trey's at practice for the first time like while I've been there, and what am I doing? I'm going outside and I'm kind of scoping out where his normal walk route is gonna be and like where's the nearest park, and then getting more comfortable. Like next would be like a grocery store and starting to cook, and then I feel like after that would be like a workout place and going there once a week just to try it out, and then after that finding little hobbies. And
You're on your 4th country that you built a life in, and I think you're very good at building a life even outside of me. What are some tips and tricks? You just gave some of them. What else?
First one, I would say just be patient.
That's good.
Like it's hard. It's really hard, and just giving yourself grace, and it's okay to be scared, and it's okay to be uncomfortable. Like when you're speaking to someone who doesn't speak your same language, they're just as uncomfortable as you are, so don't feel embarrassed. Like you're both just humans trying to communicate.
That's so good.
Yeah, so like just like with language, that's my number one tip is everyone's uncomfortable. Like it's okay because everyone feels the same way. I think being okay doing stuff by yourself, maybe this is because I'm very introverted. I love doing stuff by myself. Like I love going to coffee shops and just like sitting by myself and drinking a coffee. Sadly, would rather do that than like go with a friend because then I have to like talk the whole time. And sometimes I just want to be quiet and I just want to walk around by myself, and I want to shop by myself, and I want to work out by myself. That's another thing. I love working out by myself, like in workout classes, but by myself. I think that's just because I'm introverted. Yeah, just be okay with being by yourself. And then when you're home alone,
lock the doors, put up all the defense systems.
yeah, I would just say whatever makes you feel safe. It could depend on the city, it could depend on the country, it could depend on your apartment building. Just make sure you feel safe, especially because
it's your home now.
Yeah, it's your home and you have to protect your home.
Just so this interview doesn't last an hour and a half, I think you've talked about so many good things and so many things that people probably don't expect, you know, when they think, oh, it's so happy and dandy, you get to go travel the world, but traveling and living are so different.
I feel like that's the number one thing people say to me is like, oh my gosh, you're living the life. Keep in mind, everything's a highlight reel on social media, and living anywhere away from your home, whether it's in Europe or a state away or a country away, whatever, it's hard. Living is definitely a lot different than traveling, especially in beautiful places like this. We're not a tourist anymore. We're
residents.
Yeah, I was going to say not a local, but a resident. And it's really hard. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. So if you think that, you're far from the truth. But it's great too.
Maybe this will be part 1. Maybe we'll do another one if they really enjoy it, because I've enjoyed this and I feel like I just like hearing you talk about it too. What's the most annoying part about living with me? I know there's probably nothing because I'm so incredible to live with. Like it's just probably so easy, you know? And be honest. Embarrass me. Let it all fly.
I can't. He's stinky, aka his butt.
Oh.
Like
So you're saying I just be dookie.
Yeah.
Hey Francisco, end the video right now. Thank you guys, and I appreciate you watching, and hopefully you learned a bit about my beautiful wife and just the realistic life of spending time overseas and what actually living's like. If you like this stuff, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to always
live atypical.
Oh, she knows the brand. Let's go.
She got highs and lows. She said, yeah, I know. Wish I can make it easier. I cannot